Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Johnathan Hladik, and I'm the Policy Program Director here at the Center. Each January marks the start of state legislative sessions in Nebraska and in Iowa, and today I'll give you a short preview about what you can expect to see in these states, and I'll explain how we plan to advance our top priorities. First, the logistics. The Nebraska session officially begins tomorrow on January 5th. It's a short 60-day session tentatively scheduled to end on April 20th. In Iowa, that session will begin on January 10th. Legislators are planning for the session to last about 100 days, which would mark April 19th as the final day. While legislative debate will look quite different in Nebraska and in Iowa, legislators in both states will share one major priority, and that is tax reform. Each state took in billions of dollars of federal stimulus over the past 2 years. There are clear restrictions on a state's ability to lower taxes by using direct federal stimulus. However, the indirect stimulus a state received through payments to individuals or to businesses ended up creating higher than expected state revenues. These higher revenues have given state lawmakers a lot to work with. In Nebraska and in Iowa, this means lawmakers will be looking at ways to reform the tax code. So we can expect income tax and potentially property tax reductions to be a focus of debate right now. This is something that we at the Center will be following very closely, and we invite your feedback along the way. Now, turning to one major difference, much of the direct stimulus each state received is flowing through the America Rescue Plan Act of 2021. We call these ARPA funds, and you'll hear me say that throughout. Congress designated a good share of the ARPA funds for state programs that already rely in whole or in part on federal funds. You can think of public education, food insecurity, or healthcare programs like Medicaid, for an example. However, a large part, named the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, or FRF, comes with fewer restrictions. For these, states will have until the end of 2024 to obligate funds, and until 2026 to complete their spending. While there is some time to work, legislators or administrations are acting now. So in Iowa, the Reynolds administration is deciding how to spend this funding without much input from the legislature. But in Nebraska, the Ricketts administration is taking a much different approach. Here, the administration will work with legislators to introduce a comprehensive bill, much like a budget, that recommends how to spend these state fiscal recovery funds. This bill will be the subject of a public hearing in front of the Appropriations Committee, just like the budget again, and it will be eligible for amendment. Individual senators will also be introducing their own individual bills that include spending recommendations, sometimes for existing programs or sometimes for a new program they'd like to create. One such bill will be introduced by Senator Tom Brandt, and it would appropriate $10 million into the Independent Processor Assistance Program. You might remember this as the program we all worked together to create through LB 324 last session. When funded, this program will expand the capacity of the state's smallest meat lockers, and that is especially important to livestock producers who continue to lose business because of locker limitations. If you are a livestock producer, or you know one, who has faced challenges when trying to schedule a timely locker date, please reach out to let us know. We're definitely going to need your help during the public hearing. Our work during the 2021 legislative session also helped solidify funding for Business Innovation Act programs. One piece of that fund is very important to center programming, as it allows staff to provide loans and technical assistance to rural entrepreneurs across Nebraska. Current statute limits the size of loans made with microenterprise assistance program funding to $100,000 or less. This was last updated in 2015, and it's a limitation that often requires entrepreneurs to find secondary sources of funding to complete business loans. And that's turned out to be a real hardship for the entrepreneurs that we work with, especially those who are already facing their own unique challenges. This session, we're working with Senator Myron Dorn to eliminate or to raise this cap. And three additional issues that we will not be writing legislation for, but we expect to follow closely and weigh in on, include healthcare, workforce shortages, teacher shortages, and food insecurity. The COVID-19 pandemic brought attention to the shortage of healthcare workers across rural parts of our state, and advocates are exploring opportunities right now to use some of those ARPA funds to close this gap. Right now, suggestions include developing a new rural healthcare workforce training program or expanding eligibility for student loan repayment programs to advanced practice nurses who agree to live and work in a rural area. We're seeing some of these similar workforce challenges emerging in education as well. Rural districts are struggling to staff their faculty, and some are canceling classes when local substitutes aren't available. Existing regulations may be contributing to this shortage, and so we're collaborating with advocates to advance reform legislation that might make it easier to find substitutes to staff our classrooms. And we also know that food security has grown during the pandemic, and this is in spite of state and federal support. And that reality has drawn attention to the food supply chain in the state. Right now, we're working with partners to discuss legislation that will increase efficiencies across the industry and provide businesses and organizations with the support they need to become more resilient to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And now I'm going to turn to Iowa, where we are training our focus on water quality. Many of you know that in December, the Reynolds administration announced a $100 million investment in water infrastructure and water quality efforts. Of that, $5 million is available for non-point source watershed protection projects that address water quality, focus on green infrastructure, and support measures to control non-point source pollution. Over the past month, we've been working with IFA staff to shape this program in a way that offers needed support to local watershed management authorities. We're going to be looking for additional opportunities during session to help these local agencies play a greater role in efforts to clean up water quality throughout the state. And in addition, we all know that renewable energy siting has grown to become more contentious throughout rural Iowa. Advocates are considering whether to introduce statewide siting standards. While such a move would prohibit counties from enacting prohibitively strict ordinances, it might also violate the widely held belief that land use decisions are best made at the local level. Here at the center, we do not believe a statewide regulatory board of appointed officials should be making these local land use decisions. This would undermine local control and remove the ability of rural residents to govern themselves. Instead, we're going to advocate for solutions that provide data and guidance to local officials while making it easier for them to put this information to work. If you are experiencing ordinance development in your county or siting challenges in your area, please do reach out to our staff to let them know and help us understand how we can best lend a hand. That does it for our top priorities. As always, there are going to be bills introduced and issues that arise that we don't know about at this time. You can always plan on a few surprises, and that's what makes it fun. This year isn't going to be any different. If you've not done so already, please be sure to sign up for our state legislative newsletters for frequent updates throughout the session. And remember that we cannot do this work without you. We truly prioritize and value your feedback as debates take place, because legislators value us for our authenticity. When you submit testimony, when you attend a meeting, or when you make a quick phone call, you're helping legislators look past the lobbyists and special interest groups toward the real needs of rural people. And here at the center, we're here to make that happen. So thank you for your support, and we are looking forward to a very productive 2022.